Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Combot Collective. Bring everything you want to know from the world of robot combat, from the heavyweight class to the flyweight class, from BattleBots to the live circuit. And this is our 6th episode of Robot Combat tonight. We are recording live on our Discord server, 5th of May, 2023. And we are here. We are very excited. The BattleBots playoffs have officially commenced. We got some spicy topics to talk about today, and I am joined here with a couple of co-hosts for our second straight week. Super excited. We got Pory Nog here once again. For the first time in a while, Captain Cold Freeze is here. Very excited about it. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
What's going on, man? I'm doing good.
Yeah, doing pretty good here myself. Things are starting to get warm here in Texas, like summer kind of warm. It was brutal on the ride home. It rained for a whole 10 minutes, so everything got nice and humid. So that was fun, but I'm not too frizzly. I'm hanging in there. I got the swimming shirt on. I got the BattleBots 2019 shirt on. We're looking good. We're feeling good, and we're talking about some robot combat here today. As I mentioned, round of 32, it is kicked off. The right half of the bracket has went down. We got some good fights. We got some quick fights. We got some interesting fights. There was a post-show. We're going to be talking all about that. I did say that we were going to be doing rankings at the end of the episode last week for this week, but with the recent development about Riptide and Tantrum, two things that are probably going to be taking a bit of talking time here on Robot Combat tonight, moving them to next week. Hate to move it back again. I do apologize, but then we'll have our full round of 32 draw laid out when we cover the rankings. But let's go ahead and get some other stuff out of the way before we get to some live event housekeeping to kick off our episode. We're talking about Extreme Robots to kick the day off. But first, of course, this is the Combot Collective. And as always, here at the Combot Collective, we are sponsored by our friends at robotsruinmylife.com. They are the merchandise provider for numerous East Coast teams in the world of robot combat. Some teams which you will see in BattleBots this season. Of course, Ripperoni, the number 12, 13 seed, somewhere in that ballpark. They're taking on Black Dragon next week. They're partnered with robotsruinmylife.com. You also have some robots which are going to be appearing at NHRL, which we're going to be talking about here in a second. Machines like Marathon, Lil Rip, Blackbird, Shredded Bro. They're all also have merchandise at robotsruinmylife.com. So be sure to check out their website in the link below for t-shirts, poker chips, buttons, bags, everything that we talk about on this episode every single week. Be sure to check it out. Like I said, in the link below, we'll be talking more about it on our live stream this weekend. But hey, let's go ahead and get to some of the more interesting stuff to talk about here. Talk about some robots. That's what we're here for. Of course, at the end of the month, the UK Heavyweight Live Scene Tour will officially be kicking off. Robots Live, not happening just yet, but Extreme Robots, probably the biggest event happening across the pond. Big cash prizes, group efforts, teams. You got their traveling championship. A lot of fun stuff happening over there. Well, they haven't been doing any Reactivate episodes lately, unfortunately, but they have been sharing a lot of news on social media. And today, just kind of doing what we did last week for NHRL and RCE, we're talking about some of these new robots which are appearing at Extreme Robots' 2023 season. We don't know if these robots are going to be on teams, if they're going to be demo bots, show bots. You know how it is. There's different classifications at Extreme Robots, but here we go, running over some of these events, some of these robots which you can see at these events. I believe the first event will be in Brentwood, May 26th, May 27th. So be sure to check out Extreme Robots on social media. Check out their website if you want tickets to those events. But here's some of the new robots which you may expect at this event. Of course, you got to start it off with the face of Extreme Robots here, Ripper. It's been at Extreme Robots when it was called Roaming Robots. It was at Extreme Robots when it was called Robot Wars. These guys pretty much own the whole company now. They're awesome people. John Finlay with Ripper. They have a brand new version of Ripper which is debuting this year. It is made.
It looks good.
It looks so good, doesn't it? It's beautiful. And it's going to be serious. They got some of the parts which were originally intended for the BattleBots 2020 version of Ripper on this robot. It's sleek. It really reminds me of Shades of Tanche, I would say. It kind of takes from that theming and style. Very sleek, very futuristic, very modern looking. Definitely a good step away from the Rippers of the past, which looked good, but they've pretty much had that same look and design since 2005. They really could have used a breath of fresh air here. Kind of curious to see how the livery is going to look, if it's still going to be that signature green and yellow, because in the CADs that we first saw, these robots, will have them right here. Kind of looks more of a natural metal kind of color, but that might have also just sort of been a placeholder. Talking about flippers, though, we got a couple more big ones right here from veteran teams which have made it into Robot Wars Grand Finals in the past. We start off here with a robot first shared by TCC News and reactivated a couple months back. Tomb Raider 3, better known as TR3, will be back. They are first time fighting since the pandemic happened. This is a Tomb Raider 3, my apologies, Tomb Raider 4. It's a little bit longer than the Tomb Raider 2, Tomb Raider 3. Built more like Thor in that kind of regard, but it is still your classic Brit flipper. Very, very underrated driver there, and Alex driving for the robot TR4. Hopefully we can see them turn some heads. Maybe this is one of them robots that will be the fourth captaining team captain for this upcoming Extreme Robots season. One robot which we do know the team of, presumably going to be on Team Quake with the rest of the Team Shock robots, is of course Maelstrom. Of course, this is a bit of a last-minute addition to the Extreme Robots field this year. This robot is taking the place of the originally intended Aftershock, which was going to be the Axbot replacement for Aftershock. We don't know why this robot has pulled out for the time being, but we do know that Team Shock is replacing Aftershock with Maelstrom, at least for the first half of the Extreme Robots 2023 season. Maelstrom, of course, the son of Saint Aggro, pretty much going back to the early days of Robot Wars, not even early days of Robot Wars, 2003, team bought St. Aggro around 2004, 2005, made the robot Maelstrom, had quite a lot of success with it, never appeared at Robot Wars, but we're finally seeing it back in the arena once again for the first time since 2018. The status for Aftershock and Aftershock still remains in limbo, but like I mentioned, hopefully we can see these robots compete in full combat before the year is over. Aftershock still very much a powerful vertical spinner in the UK. Zagkill has been a bit of a kryptonite to it last year, but still a robot you need to watch out for. And speaking of Zagkill, the Saint, another robot returning from quite a long hiatus here. Not the most exciting one if you're an old head and you know what this robot brings to the table. It is a mainstay of the mid-2000s, early 2010s UK live scene. Pretty much two big wheels and a thwacking sword. Gabriel, before they really worked out the kinks and made that robot a serious contender, they had the Saint Hammer as it was originally named. I'll be curious to see if someone's going to be fighting with the old robots, if it's going to be in the sportsman field, or maybe even the full combat field if they want to be so bold. Only time will tell. Here's a more exciting one. Of course, the team which absolutely dominated the UK live scene last year, and pretty much every year lately, is Team Invade. Eruption right now sits in the top 25 on the TCC overall rankings after just one event back in November. They've been dominant. Both Ignition and Eruption have held the Extreme Robots Heavyweight Challenge belt. Team Inferno, the team captained by Team Invade, has won last year's Extreme Robots Heavyweight season, and it wasn't even close. They won it like 6-2. It was brutal. It may have even been a wider margin than that. They've been only known for their flippers lately in the heavyweight class, with, of course, Eruption, the 2017 Robot Wars Series 10 champion, Ignition, the recent Extreme Robots Challenge belt winner, the front hinge flipper. Well, they are now breaking an Axbot to the mix. More heavyweight Axbots. Cool. It looks so cool, doesn't it? Definitely shades of
It's like kind of like a mix between Thor and Beta, kind of.
Yeah, I put Thor and Titan actually on my thing, but I definitely see the shades of Beta with the front wedge. It looks like it can take a beating, from some of these hardy horizontal spinners in the UK like Zadkel. They just got to be smart and careful with that axe aim. Of course, Michael Oates is one of the best flipper users in the sport, so I'm sure that won't be too much of an issue for them. The premise is fairly the same. We'll have to see how it goes for Michael Oates and Implosion. I don't think it's going to be off to as hot of a start as Eruption and Ignition were, of course, just because it is an axe spot. It's a steeper hill to get in there, but that's probably why Michael Oates made it. He wants something that's going to give him a bit of a challenge, because he'll tell you it himself. It's getting really easy over there in the UK for him. He'll talk his shit, and I like it for him, but he needs to come over to BattleBots. That's what he needs to do. I know he doesn't want to, but come on, Michael. You got to give the people what they want. We got one more
Give us what we want.
I want it, man. I want, even if it's ignition, let's get a front hinge back in the game. But we got talking about international robots in big competitions. Speaking of here, to cap it off, this is probably the most exciting recent addition here for me. From Austrian Rebel Robotics, of course, from Austria, Scrappy, spelled Scrapy, but pronounced Scrappy for some reason. It is the first international competitor confirmed for the 2023 Extreme Robots Heavyweight season. Of course, like I mentioned, representing the rarely represented nation of Austria. But this team, no slouch, no stranger to big bot action. They have made 2 heavyweights in the past, which have fought in Extreme Robots. They had locked down a 4-wheel drive crusher, which admittedly didn't get too much action in the arena. And they also had a 2-wheel drive spinner named Smasher. A bit of shades of S3 with this robot. It appeared quite a bit at 2018 and 2019 events with Extreme Robots before the pandemic. They've also built a couple of middleweights for Extreme Robots and even for IIT Tech Fest in India. One of them being Broken Head, which was a very nicely built 4-wheel drive saw bot. Hopefully we can see that bot compete in some Extreme Robots events, maybe some Robots Live events this year. And that kind of covers it right now for new robots to be excited for this Extreme Robots 2023 season. But there are some other storylines that we do know of coming into this event. We know that Team Danby should be full force for this competition with the likes of Slammo. Hopefully Apex will be there as well. Team Brutus from Belgium recently got confirmed to be the second robot for this second international robot for this new Extreme Robots season. And we've even heard rumblings about Scotland's Coyote, a robot which we last saw during Robot Wars Series 10, making a return to Extreme Robots. I think they appeared in a couple of events, but we haven't seen him in quite a while. Let's see that chainsaw back in action. Come on.
I like Coyote a lot.
It was just a fun robot. It looks really solid.
It's a good aesthetic.
It has, yeah. It's got that. It just looks like a robot built for Robot Wars. It really does.
Yeah.
They were doing some WWE style promos that made it look like they were hacking into feet, and they were like, "I am Coyote. I am going to take over." So I don't know if they're still did some double tap shit. I mean, I don't know if they're still serious about it. That was a few months back, and we haven't heard anything since. But I love seeing these Scottish robots. Hopefully we can see that. But let's go back over to our side of the pond here, talk about some other small bots events. We went really into detail about these, so we'll keep it brisk. This is more of a reminder than anything. If you're watching this live on YouTube, I'm sorry, if you're watching this live on Discord, my apologies, you would know that tomorrow is the start of NHRL, May 6th. May the bots be with you. It is their 3rd NHRL event of the year. Very excited about it. Lots of promising robots competing at this event by the likes of AVGS. They're coming for the first time this year with the likes of Sombra, Aloco. We also, of course, got Blackbird from our buddies at robotsruinmylife.com. Smee's us an inside job from Team Smee, Team Flight Plan. That's what it is. Joe Fabiani. Kruk from Team Defective, among others. Some solid robots there. That's going to be happening exclusively on Saturday, the 6th of May. But happening right now, in fact, probably in the great city of Seattle. The RobotCombatEvents.com annual finals event is going on. It's a 3-day event ending on Sunday, I believe. And this was an invite-only event for plenty of amazing teams on the West Coast. Some came with the trip on the East Coast, decided to skip NHRL for this one. But we got the likes of course, Team Malice is there with a few robots. Team Dark Forces, Team Small Robots is there with Puka and Son of Cram. We got Little Dill from Team Big Dill of Team Food Fight with Emmanuel Carrillo. The robot La Machine, which recently won the Motorama 30-pound sportsman class. From Las Vegas Combat Robotics, Wumbo, and arguably the best 3-pounder in the world, Calvin Eba's Lynx, also present at this event. That event's happening in Seattle, 3-day event, like I mentioned, NHRL. It's happening in Connecticut, of course, in their home ground, the House of Havoc. Small bots action, a lot of it happening in the USA. And if you're watching this live on Discord, like I mentioned, we are going to be doing a live stream pregame show for this tomorrow on the YouTube page. Amidst the Havoc, we're going to be doing the live stream pregame show at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, and we're going to be doing the postgame show as soon as NHRL finishes their stream. If you're watching it live, if you're watching this live, be sure to check out that live. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to check out the VODs to hear what we thought about NHRL May. Watch both the post and pre-stream, get our thoughts on that. You can check it out on the live tab on our YouTube page. But I think that pretty much covers it. Norwalk Havoc, RCE Finals, Extreme Robots. A lot of exciting stuff happening there, especially for the UK. I'm ready to see some more heavyweight action around the world. It's picking up in the perfect time, right when the BattleBots season ends. So be sure to get tickets to that. Get tickets to upcoming Robot Combat events, Robot NHRL events. But that's the housekeeping, live event stuff out of the way, guys. BattleBots playoffs have happened, and let's go ahead and jump into it, get into the nitty gritty here, and talk about some stuff. We had our reactions to the tournament last week. I did it with Mantine. We talked about the final week of regular season play. It was great. Pretty much both of us, for the most part, agreed with the bracket presented. Of course, we all have our thoughts on the Shatter thing, but we knew with the Riptide matchup, it was kind of all for naught anyway. That was certainly quite a thing happening. We'll be talking quite a bit about that, I'm sure, but hope you guys are ready. Let's hop into these 8 fights, and we got to kick it off with our 3 versus 30. The fight which kicked off the week here, the playoffs altogether for BattleBots' 2022 Top 32. And it was Witch Doctor versus Jackpot, Killer Green Machines here. Witch Doctor entered this 3-1, dominant, with its only loss coming just last week against the number 1 seed Minotaur in a judge's decision. This is going to be its 7th playoff appearance in 7 reboot seasons. It's a modern BattleBots record, but Witch Doctor has had gremlins in the past as the number 3 seed. BattleBots mentioned it themselves going back to the 2016 playoffs. Witch Doctor, fresh off its dominant victory over Rotator, got that 3rd seed, only to take a massive upset loss to Red Devil, one of the biggest upsets in BattleBots reboot history. They're trying to make up for that here. Jackpot, meanwhile, they clawed their way into the playoffs after starting their year 0-2. They now make their 3rd playoffs appearance in 3 seasons, just like Witch Doctor have yet to miss the playoffs. But they come in with their biggest chip on their shoulder yet with the bad season, lowest seeding that they've ever had before. But hey, man, they were feeling lucky. Bunch of 7s on the front of that armor plow on Jackpot. And they also had the Shremek lifter up front, back for this fight. No wedges or forks at all, but with a 22-inch diamond blade was attached for this one. The team also brought their mini-bot Ace, the rotary lifter built by Jason Woods of Team Chimera. Witch Doctor, meanwhile, brought back the pair of small forks we saw last week versus Minotaur. Kept it pretty simple here. These forks played little to no factor versus Minotaur, but they played a big factor here versus Jackpot. Maybe it made the difference altogether because it certainly helped them win the ground game. Easily won the ground game here. Witch Doctor did. Got right under Jackpot's Shremek lifter and managed to obliterate one of those lifting arms right in the opening seconds of the fight during the first strike of the matchup. And even though the lifter did get bangled up, Jackpot was pretty sturdy during this fight. The weapon certainly wasn't, though. Like I just mentioned, those diamond blades quit spinning after the fight's 30-second mark. Witch Doctor got 12 strikes to Jackpot unanswered during this matchup after the weapon died. 4 of these gave the Vegas bot some serious airtime. It was a very, very impressive first performance by Witch Doctor. A far cry from what happened in 2016. A near-perfect fight in 2 minutes and 20 seconds for the knockout. I think Team Busted Nuts Robotics is going to remember this playoff performance much more than 2016. Jackpot, meanwhile, 2 straight victories, but they're out of the round of 32 immediately. A robot that, as Chris Rose said, looked like an accordion by the time this match was over. Looked durable, though, at the very least. They can say that. Probably one of the most durable fights Jackpot has put up. Best of luck, though, to Las Vegas Combat Robotics at Proving Ground this summer when it faces Gigabyte, and, of course, at Champions also this summer. Maybe they can make a run for the Golden Bolt tournament. They'll still have the Vegas crowd behind them. But first fight up, first fight down here, guys. Witch Doctor kicked off the playoffs with a spooky bang. What were you guys' thoughts on this first fight? This was a good start.
That was brutal.
Yeah.
There's not much of a way to put it. Like that, it was quite the spectacle. I mean, that damage at the end was like insane. Like the fact Jackpot was like mangled. You'd love to see it. I mean, it does make me sad because I really like Jackpot and I wanted them to win, but I kind of expected this, to be honest. I kind of felt like Witch Doctor was probably going to win it regardless. I didn't think they'd win it to this degree, but
yeah,
it looked good. It looked good on their part, and it's a strong start for Witch Doctor. We'll see if they make the finals again. If they win the finals again, who knows? Just have to see.
Next fight, I don't know.
Yeah, there's not much.
Jackpot they looked decent. They put up a good fight. It just kind of looked like the gap of experience or money or build quality, but they lasted longer than I thought they would.
Agreed.
I was very surprised even after those first couple hits that the Srimec was working and their entire drive was working. So props to them for sticking in there. But I don't know, in the form that Witch Doctor's in right now, and especially looking at who's left in their bracket, I don't see many opportunities for someone to stop them. Aside from we'll get to one later, but this is probably the best they've ever looked. I mean, their fight against Minotaur last year was pretty. That second half of it was almost non-existent. In the first half, they were kind of getting bodied, and their fight this year was much closer. And now with this with this performance against Jackpot, I can only name a handful of robots that I think could even beat them, and that probably won't even happen for a couple of rounds. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, very, very impressive performance here by Witch Doctor. Valiant performance from Jackpot, like you guys said. Great durability. Good point that Srimec did last after a couple of big hits, and it certainly wasn't lasting after a couple of small hits to start off the season against the Lexus Scorpius. So good for them there. I feel like that they kind of got shafted a little bit. I feel like them and Death Roll could have gotten a higher seed. I mean, I know that they're 2-2s. They can only do so much with it, but they got some brutal matchups early on in this tournament. But very good performance by Witch Doctor. I have it going far in the bracket myself. A robot that I did have, I guess not going far in this bracket, but I did have winning this matchup. Went 7-1 on that half of the bracket, by the way. One blemish, and it was this next fight here. Lucky, the 15th seed, versus HyperShock, the 18th seed. I felt like a lot of people had perfect halves of the bracket. There was a lot of predictable fights in this episode. Good fights, don't get it twisted. But I was feeling a little silly. I was feeling like mixing it up, predicting a bit upset, and I went for Lucky here. And they did good, but it wasn't enough. Like I said, bummed about this one. Almost a perfect fight. I'm glad it wasn't just me. I'm glad you're here with me in the support group, Pory. I
like Lucky.
I thought they had a chance, and I'll bring it up here in a second why. But going on with the fight itself here, Lucky this season, 3-1 inside the battle box this year, the best season in team history since their impressive 2018 campaign. After their Robo Games run, they were TCC #1 ranked heavyweight for a while, 3 weeks if I remember correctly. But Combot shut that shit down last week. They're trying to bounce back, and a KO here would have brought them back to #1. HyperShock, meanwhile, was TCC #1 entering this BattleBots season and was even my pick to win this entire thing when we were doing our season previews at the start of the year. But what we've seen has been, typical HyperShock coin flip. Some years it's unstoppable, some years it's a bit of a mess. We're sitting kind of in the middle entering this fight, this playoffs, with a lot of questions still to be answered for the former TCC #1 ranked bot. In this fight, Lucky would bring back that near full radius bumper, which we saw during the last fight against Combot. And they've also added a couple other crazy things in typical Lucky fashion. There's a spoiler of sorts on the rear of the robot, which may have been intended as a bit of a bot stopper, like what Blip was trying to do last week. I really don't know what it was. It looked neat. And of course, up front, we see a row of 4 sturdy, solid forks, which we saw Lucky first use during Robo Games earlier this month. Did pretty well here, but not enough. HyperShock on its end kept it simple. One of 2 configurations we always see this team go with, either anti-horizontal or anti-vertical. This was the anti-vertical, 2 long wedges in the Drisk setup, commonly used here. But what made this HyperShock special was that it entered this fight a little bit lightweight, only 238 pounds. Team was looking to remove some armor and components for the sake of agility here. It could have been a gamble, could have made themselves slightly easier for a flipper to throw, but I would say it paid off here. As I mentioned, entering this fight, I had Lucky winning this because of what history has shown us with HyperShock in the playoffs. HyperShock got dominated by Hydra, a flipper, in the round 32 in 2020. Also did bad against them in 2019. HyperShock then got upset by P1, a lifter, during a much more promising year in 2021. Once again in the round of 32. It just seems like this is their playoff kryptonite up to this point. HyperShock always getting caught upside down. They hadn't won a playoff fight since 2016. And I thought Lucky had solved this equation early on. I mean, after taking a little bit of punishment, they managed to flip HyperShock over just as the team had hoped. Easy, nice, little gentle flip like we've seen them do this season. And for about 10 seconds, it seemed like things were fine for the Canadian Crusader. But then HyperShock full sended itself right into the upper deck, bouncing off the upper deck, then the ad board, then the arena wall itself to flip itself back over right in front of Chris and Kenny. They were wowed. I was wowed. That was Lucky's only saving grace because it was all downhill from this impressive point. HyperShock bounced back. First strike post flip. Buckled Lucky's flipper upwards. It was pretty much useless from that point forward. Front half was locked upright. They could still self-right, kind of like Jackpot in the prior fights, but there was not much Lucky could do here besides be a target for HyperShock moving forward. Lucky would go 1 for 4 on flip attempts, batting .250 here. As I mentioned, amidst all the brutality, it showed it can still self-ride. It showed that Lucky is still a horse. It's still durable. Matt Olson showed some impressive defensive driving and even managed to show a bit of control halfway through the fight, push HyperShock up to the wall a couple of times. But regardless, Will Bales and HyperShock does win here via a dominant judge's decision. Picks up the first playoff win since 2016. They looked great here, man. They fought nearly a perfect fight, just like Witch Doctor did. The only blemish they had seemed to be a busted chain on the rear right wheel, but it didn't affect them at all by any means. Great performance here. Yeah. Canada's out of the tournament. HyperShock's moving forward. Are they going to have this great run still after a tumultuous regular season? What are you guys thinking about this one?
It was definitely a fun fight. I predicted Lucky to win, but admittedly, that was a lot of copium I was smoking with that, so I just, I love a good upset.
I think there was a little bit of logic behind that. Like I mentioned, they just haven't been good against flippers lately. They don't stream back.
Yeah, but I mean, Lucky, they got one flip. They got that one flip. That was a flip. That was something. But the thing with Lucky is I feel like they really gotta figure out some ground game. Like they gotta adapt some forks or something. If I'm being honest, I feel like I don't know. It just like their ground game ain't it. I feel like with some good ground game, they could be like the flipper. You know what I mean? But that said, they survived. They definitely took the punishment. But HyperShock just was too much for them, and I applaud HyperShock for their performance.
Well, I kind of feel the same way about Lucky in this fight that I did about Jackpot in the last fight. It, I guess, slightly exceeded my expectations. This one actually ran for the full 3 minutes, so that's impressive enough for them. I just, Pory kind of hit the nail on the head. It's surprising to me that Lucky's ground game and forks and whatnot are so not there. Every time I see them come in, the best they have is usually those really high set forks like they had in this fight. And I don't know, just where we're at with the competition. That's you're gonna struggle against a lot of the vertical spinners, and I feel like if they were able to get under consistently, this could have been a much different fight, and most of their fights could be more competitive in general. I would like to see that change made because I think Matt Olson is a really good driver, and I do think they have potential, and not just flippers, but the non-vertical spinners have shown a lot this year in particular. So I don't think it's exactly a dying, art form or whatever. I just think there's some more things that need to be dialed in. But as for HyperShock, super impressive, especially just showing the growth from last season to this, to be able to get themselves righted and take control of the match again. They're definitely in a better spot than they were last year. I think 4 fights instead of 2 probably helped them work out a lot of gremlins. But also, Will is just getting smarter and more mature as a driver, and I think that's that's pretty scary to see. And I would rate them a lot higher if they didn't have to face who they have to face next. But regardless, this I think compared to last season, I know they went undefeated, 2-0 in qualifiers, but I think they look a lot better this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. I mean, you guys bring up a lot about this lucky configuration business, and I have to agree. You know, for such a configuration heavy team, I mean, shit, even at RoboGames, factoring in all those fights, I feel like every single time we've seen Lucky fight this year, it's looked decently different. They got all sorts of bells and whistles to attach for nearly any situation. You guys bring up the those high set forks that they used for this fight. They also used them, I believe, against Mad Cat or at RoboGames, like I mentioned. They're good. They're sturdy. Will Bells was complimenting them, but as you guys were saying, they're too steep. Some of the other configurations that they've used this year, they had that long tongue thing up front for one fight. Maybe that could have been a helpful thing in this matchup, especially for a vertical spinner like HyperShock. But I also feel like they have trouble getting good purchase, and it also connects to the wedges. But they have trouble getting good purchase with that punching flipper. But at RoboGames, they really did seem to turn it around. I mean, of course, they did go 3-2 in the regular season and playoffs at BattleBots this year. Had some good flips, but a lot of those flips were very gentle, very tactical, like the one versus Triton, the one versus Shredded Bro, the one versus HyperShock. Not much airtime. We saw a lot more oomph in that flipper during RoboGames. Looked like it was almost, maybe not Hydra level, but Brit Flipper level. So hopefully we can see a little bit more pop and Lucky for, at the very least, Season 8, World Championship 8, the 2023 season. If not, maybe Proving Ground, or maybe not Proving Ground, my bad, the Golden Bolt tournament, if they got it worked out or figured out then. But I think there's a good future, good promise for Lucky moving forward. And high hopes for HyperShock moving through this tournament, just because, I did pick them to win it. And, I picked a different robot to win it, but we'll get to that. At the start of the season, I picked them to win it. Let's talk about this third fight here. 14th seed versus 19th seed, and two more robots, which kind of meeting in the middle here. LockJaw versus Bloodsport. Rematch time. LockJaw enters this fight as a 3-1 upper middle seed after a massive bounce back season compared to what they were dealing with last year. Probably the worst season in Mutant Robots' near 30-year history last year when LockJaw went 0-4. Looking much better, and they're taking on a robot which they've defeated before here. The 2-2 Bloodsport, which honestly had much more momentum on its side when it lost to LockJaw back in the 2020 bounty competition. I mean, Team Bloodsport, regardless of that, BNS Robotics still looking to make it an even score here. It was a tale of all weapon on one side, all defense on the other. LockJaw had on a brand new anti-horizontal spinner rear plow for this fight. Only one arm up front, sacrificing weight on that end of the robot. And Bloodsport, meanwhile, used their signature cross blade alongside no wedges or forks at all up front. The team was looking to do some damage, so they might have wished they had them for this fight. I don't know how much of a factor it would have played. They were looking for some damage, and damage they got, Team BNS here. Both of these robots had brief moments of serious panic early on during this short but electric fight. Bloodsport had some serious flames shooting out of their weapon housing momentarily, and LockJaw was down a wheel and a half only 37 seconds into this fight after some wicked strikes from Bloodsport. So, I mean, here we were, not even a minute into the fight. LockJaw was limping with no weapon, struggling on those chambered wheels, which have honestly been a massive hindrance for it all season. But hey, sometimes breaking your fist with my face still works after all. It didn't work for Duck at the end of its career there, but it's working for LockJaw. A couple more strikes from Bloodsport and Tragedy. Yeah, can't talk all of a sudden. Jeez, Tragedy would hit for BNS Robotics here. Like I mentioned, after a couple more strikes here from Bloodsport, Donald Hudson was able to square up that plow perfectly on Bloodsport here, landing a defensive combo which threw the already damaged weapon motor on Bloodsport, and Bloodsport's itself over, and the horizontal spinner just could not get up. Justin Marple was reasonably livid after this driving mistake, a rare driving mistake from what has to be one of the best controlled robots in the sport right now. And LockJaw advanced off sheer survivability and grit, a little bit of veteran experience there, in a 1 minute, 23 second knockout victory. And in one last hurrah, Bloodsport docks Pory one more time to end the year. A frustrating loss for Bloodsport, but still, holding up the Bloodsport Pory sticker right here. It's still a bounce back year for BNS Robotics.
Is it doxing if the name's wrong? Cut that out.
That fight was really good. It might have been my favorite of the night. I don't know.
It got me the most excited. I'll admit that. Like, I was really fired up when LockJaw pulled off the comeback.
Yeah, that one definitely had the most like back and forth because I mean Bloodsport was they came close. They were messing LockJaw up, but then unfortunately they felt the need to dox me again. Well, you know how that is. That said, I mean I was worried, but I guess they just kind of had to figure out the gremlins of like self-riding with that with the motor on top, which they are capable of doing. I watched a video like yesterday where they showed them in like the test box self-riding that way. So it's not like they are incapable of doing it. It's just has been working right in their favor, unfortunately, this season.
I mean, it's always easy to self-right in a test box. I could self-right in a test box. Once you take a couple hardy hits from that ass plowing LockJaw, things change. Plus that big fire, that had to have played a factor. I mean, I might be wrong on that, but it definitely did seem intentional.
I'm sure it did. Probably made the blade a little weaker, but I'm happy to see the result. I mean, because when last season ended, LockJaw was 0-4, and the BattleBots community was like, "Oh, LockJaw's washed." Well, now they're 4-1 this season, and they're looking good. So you love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This was. I do also think this was probably the most exciting fight all the way through. There was a lot of back and forth, even though it didn't go the full 3 minutes. On one hand, I am sad because, as we'll get into, every robot that won this week was a vertical spinner. Traditional or not, all of our other options on this half are pretty much gone. And I did want to see Bloodsport do well, especially they would have had Witch Doctor up next, and I think that at least could have been interesting. I mean, they did take out Endgame the year they won the nut. But at the same time, even though LockJaw is a vertical spinner, Donald Hudson's still got that old school. That's all I could really call it. It's old school. The way he drives like he still has the 2001 dissector, and the absolute dismantling of Final Destiny or robots like that he's still able to pull off, even when his robot is okay. It's an okay vertical spinner, but it's so well driven and so well strategized that it's able to compete with those robots that have greater destructive capabilities. And it was just really nice to see from him. And especially, the bounce back. I mean, I was there last year, and, tough to see one of my favorite, probably my favorite builder ever, not win a fight. I think I saw 3 of his fights, and, none of them went Donald Hudson's way, but he's still, if anyone's going to be able to pull that off, it's going to be him. And especially considering he didn't do it with a major design change or anything like that. It was just, good old-fashioned
LockJaw
strategy. Yeah. So it's nice to see from him, and he's going to need to pull something out of his ass to beat Witch Doctor. But I mean, I don't know if I would rather have anyone else behind the wheel.
Yeah, that's going to be something special. And as BattleBots mentioned, kind of crazy here. These two robots, these two green machines, have been in every single season, 2015, 2016, 2018, 19, 20, 21. Never fought each other. They've eluded each other. But here we go. We're finally going to get it, and I am pretty stoked. If we're going to have these all-vert showdowns, let's get something like that. And to your point, Freeze, talking about, hey, we're down to all-verts on this top 16 side. I didn't even think about that, but you were 100% right. And losing Bloodsport's also a big piece because, I mean, we'll get to it in a second. I don't know what the hell, who's going to take out Huge here. Maybe Witch Doctor? Only robot I can think of. That was the hard counter for Huge in this half of the bracket. We'll have to see how things go. But as in the immortal words of CJ, oh shit. Here we go again. Let's talk about this fight here, boys. Riptide versus Shatter. We'll save the talk about what happened here for after my little rundown of the fights.
Let's stick to the fight for now.
I'll bust out the big question after we get our fight talk out of the way here. But here's some cliff notes of what happened before the fight, just to set the scene here, because it did play a factor, I guess, I don't know. Both robots had set their configurations to fight, as we do in BattleBots. Then Team Break 32 was caught just before tunnel entrances happened, modifying Riptide. We don't know what it was at the time. Illegal by BattleBots ruling. Bots FC caught this, Eric Wrigley specifically, not the guy you want catching you doing some shit, called them out and requested a reweigh, retest, and remeasuring of their tip speed, if I remember correctly, done in the test box, done on the scales. Break 32 got oddly defensive about this whole procedure, but did agree, and upon reweighing Riptide weighed 2 pounds less, but all other tests showed that it was clear of any immediate wrongdoing. So the fight was set to resume. Bots FC seemed satisfied with what they did, but meanwhile, Team Break 32 felt like, or I guess I shouldn't call all of Team Break 32 in here. This was Ethan speaking for himself here. Ethan said that he felt like that they were being put off their game and even threatened the use of excessive damage to shatter, or at least that's how I kind of took it. It didn't seem like the best thing to say, especially after that Shred Raider fight, but here, so let's actually talk about the fight here. Shatter, the questionable 31 seed turned people's hero, finally had a chance to show off what they were calling the Hail Mary setup here, using copious amounts of ablative armor and emulsifiers too. Front long forks with hopes to jam up the weapon on Riptide, plus, of course, weapon on deck for this fight, the new Rusty Hammerhead, not the old Rusty, almost pulled a Chris Rose there. Suggested the Mary Special, they didn't use it for this fight, wish they did, oh well. Riptide, meanwhile, enters looking as it did versus Black Dragon. 2 forks and apparently 2 pounds less than they were an hour before. And now, obviously, I don't think, personally, at least for me, y'all might have a different opinion. I don't think whatever 2 pound change was going to dictate much here, and nor did Bots FC. They did greenlight the fight. So they went into this fight. Unfortunately, we got the result. A lot of us were expecting brutality and aggression by Riptide's side in absolute droves. Massive damage to Shatter. But credit to Shatter here. Held up shockingly well. Both those emulsifier forks came off in under a minute. But this really looked like the blue we knew and loved from the King of Bots days here, especially near the end with just how resilient it was. Shatter just wouldn't die. Kept firing and fighting until it was countered out with 1 minute, 1 second left to go. And even after this fight was called, Eric Wrigley was still livid about tip speed after the fight, which is something apparently, according to what Adam Wrigley said during the Road to the Giant Nut post-show, was an issue that past teams have called them out on with Riptide. Of course, nothing concrete. This is just allegations, alleged stuff. Yeah. And we also saw the pulverizer swinging at Shatter a lot after the robot was already downed. I was not too fazed by this because I'm used to Pulverizer Pete from the Comedy Central days just pounding the shit out of Whirligig versus Carnage Raptor and stuff like that. And they're more for show, especially against these heavyweights. What?
No, actually, that's perfect. That is exactly the reference I wanted. Thank you.
I'm glad someone knew it. Someone knew it.
On my VHS of that episode, it cuts to Clifford the Big Red Dog in the middle of it, and then it comes back and Whirligig is just getting destroyed. So yeah, I mean, that's what I remember.
The Whirligig driver just being like, "What the fuck, man?" And Pete Abramson, he was old then. He's like Mesozoic now, just laughing his ass off, like, ha, "Fuck you." It's 2000. We don't have game show rules yet. We can do what we want.
Exactly.
Was such great stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think obviously Shatter did smoke, but that could have been from them swinging the weapon. I'm not going to put too much judgment into that. Shoutouts to Whirligig, though. Yeah. I'm just glad Ethan was smart enough not to do excessive damage, even though he did threaten it. I'll get to the big question here in a second, but general thoughts about the fight, guys. Talking purely about machines here.
It was brutal. But that said, I'm proud of Shatter for at least trying to be aggressive. Like, they swung, they didn't, like, they weren't, like, you know, hesitant with the hammer. They still went at it and, you know, took the risks. I mean, it didn't pay off for them, unfortunately, but I respect that Shatter, despite being very much the underdog in this, still made an effort and tried, you know. I appreciate that, but I couldn't see this fight going any other way, unfortunately, outside of, like, you know, Riptide randomly dying maybe, but, like, yeah, the Shatter sadly did not have a chance, but at least they at least they put on a good show. We love that.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
pretty much how I feel, and it was really nice to see Shatter put up a fight, considering a lot of people had them as the sole outlier in this entire bracket.
Yeah.
Debatable whether they should have actually been there or not, but by their
Yeah.
performance in this fight, I mean, this is some of the most accurate hammer shots I've seen from them. Period. I mean, I remember their fights against, Wan Hu and Lockjaw as them being the premier accurate hammer, and they actually had some pretty good shots in there. I just feel like if if the robot held up more for longer, who knows? But I'm glad we at least got a maybe not competitive fight, but more competitive than the last time they fought. So,
Yeah.
props to the Shatter team, props to the robot, props to the Hammerhead for still staying on. I was impressed by that too.
Yeah,
But
that was a big one.
this version of Riptide right now, disregarding all the other stuff, is genuinely terrifying. I mean, I who in that bracket could beat them except for like an end game. I mean, almost any vert weapon to weapon Riptide hits so hard. It's got so much purchase, and it doesn't even matter that they don't run some super low long forks. They just hit everything with zero care in the world, for better or for worse. So that's all there is to say, I guess. Smile.
Yeah, it was they're a damn good robot. Obviously, we aren't doing rankings today, but they are TCC #1 as it stands right now. They are the new TCC #1. They're it's one of the best machines in the world, one of the most powerful machines. It was a standout performance for Shatter. It was a standout performance for both robots. Good resilience for Shatter.
Yeah.
Talking about weapon accuracy, they went 2 for 3 on hammer strikes. Not the most, but the ones they hit certainly mattered. And the one where they just barely missed on Riptide, and that might be debatable because Chris Rose said it hit it. I mean, I went back and watched it a couple times. I think it was a near miss.
They definitely missed that one, but regardless, it was still, this is the most accurate it was at least all season.
Yeah.
So.
No, they made it matter. They swung when it mattered and made it hit. It was very important. It was and it gave them some momentum for next year for the Golden Bolt tournament. I look forward to hopefully seeing them in there. Hopefully they aren't too damaged. I guess let's get to our first big question or two during this episode here. To quote The Sound of Music, I'm really dating myself with that one. How do we solve
that's a real good timely reference.
Yeah, thank you. That's what that reference you expect from a 24-year-old. But how do we solve a problem like Riptide? I mean,
Okay, so
oh man, let me go over my notes here real quick, and then we'll get to the ham and cheese about it here. Personally, I got to bring this up right now. It seemed like that this whole ordeal could have been avoided for the most part, for TV at least, until Ethan's loud ass decided to mention it during the post-fight interview. Then it pretty much became a topic they could not avoid before the fight, and certainly not for the post-show. I'm not going to rehash over the whole process of events like I did earlier, but a lot of teams don't like this crew. There's a whole laundry list of stuff that this team has accumulated in just 2 seasons, which have rubbed people, competitors, the wrong way going up to this fight. And you can jump to Team Riptide's defense on a few things here. Some people have. Craig Danby did make note. I think Team Endgame made this note as well. Oh yes, Robotics. That sometimes the scale or scales. Apparently, there's a couple of scales which BattleBots uses here. They give robots varying weights. Sometimes it just depends on how the robot's placed on there. Sometimes it depends on what angle the robot's been placed on there. Craig Danby has said that there's been times, like apparently during the Terratops fights, they had to stop the.
Who is fucking taking off
Claw
right now?
Viper? Hello?
Oh, I live next to a really busy street, so sometimes you hear the loud ass
That's
cars.
sick.
Like
That was.
motorcycle.
Well,
It's okay, we'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's great. But yeah, Craig Danby, during the Terratops fight, they had to stop that fight before the fight got started a couple of times, and every time they do that, they have to do a reweigh. That was Terratops' side the issues were apparently coming from, so Slammo didn't have to change, and apparently the bot came in at like 3 different weights during the resets. We also know that they passed the tip speed check, despite Eric's frustrations. Chris Rose did greenlight that on the Road to the Giant Nut. But it certainly doesn't make the negative comments about this team mean any less. I mean, shit, we've got negative comments from Team Terratops, Bots FC, Team Waiachi, Team Shreddit, Team Logicom, and probably quite a few others that I'm missing out on. I mean, what do we do? Excuse my language here, because I really have tried to be neutral about these guys as far as I could for the first season. Until pretty much the Shredderator fight. But what do we do with these fucks and their annoyingly awesome robot? I mean, quite frankly here.
Yeah, it's something. So I think it's important that we add context, at least alleged context. I don't know, I wasn't there, but from what it seems, it appears that from Riptide's side, I don't know, maybe they were cheating. I don't know. I can't confirm, but from what they say, what happened was they were supposedly taping like a fake axe on it for like a funny like tunnel entrance.
That's what I forgot. Yeah.
But that said, they should have, if they were doing that, they should have gone up to Bots FC and been like, hey, we're gonna do this funny skit for the tunnel entrance, and I'm sure Adam Wrigley would oblige and be like, that's fine. But the fact that they got defensive about it is what kind of raises my eyebrow. Like, were they doing something? We might never know.
And that hammer explanation wasn't brought up until after the fact, like yesterday on Discord and Reddit.
Yeah, this was brought up on Discord yesterday. Yeah, but so there was that. But then also they're getting mad about having to like reweigh the robot and check the tip speed. But like from what I gather, Adam Wrigley is very by the books about this. He cares about like safety and integrity of the sport. And apparently every spinner he fights, he requests like a tip speed check. This isn't just Riptide getting it. This is everyone. He asks them, and until Riptide, everyone obliged and was like, yeah, that's reasonable. Safety is important, and you know, the integrity of the sport is important. But Team Riptide just like has this like elementary school hissy fit about it, and it's like,
yeah,
bro, and like it's just been kind of a headache. It's like every time they're on TV, it's always something. And like I get that the show wants drama sometimes, you know, because it causes discourse. And God, don't go on the Facebook group because it's a fucking war zone now. But
or Reddit.
But it's just. But for me, at least, and I mean, I don't speak for the whole community, obviously, but I'm just kind of fucking sick of them. Like, when is enough enough? When are we going to just get rid of them? Because, like, their robot is incredible. It is. It truly is. It's a championship contender without question. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But the team is just, like, so problematic that, like, the crap they do takes away from the show and makes it worse for me. Like, I just... You know, like, no one's talking about how cool of a fight Lockjaw versus Bloodsport is at all. They're just all bickering back and forth about how Ethan Kurtz and Stan Kurtz are, like, being dickheads in the pits. And, like, I don't know. It's just kind of like I want to watch the show for, like, the robot fighting. I don't want to watch the show for, like, these people who just can't comprehend how to act in a competition. You know, I'm just kind of over it.
Okay, so I'm going to split this into two different discussions. So first of all, rule-wise, I'm going to go ahead and trust BattleBot's judgment on it. I think that if they independently inspected whatever was being complained about and they didn't find anything, I'm going to tentatively trust whatever ruling they made and say, I don't think Riptide was cheating. Whatever they were doing, it was, you know, the interactions were definitely unsportsmanlike, but, you know, the bottom line is if they're cheating, throw them out. If they're not, you know, too bad. You know, that happens. As far as outside of the rules, I mean, it's like it's not even fun to watch right now. Because Riptide is amazing, and I really like watching all their fights. But, I mean, like, when I was watching this with my friends last night, they were asking, like, is this fake drama? Because, it's so...
And you gotta wonder, even I, like... Sorry to cut you off there. Even I, like, wondered it with the camera being placed by the tunnel, and we know it's always there, but, You can see
Yeah,
where the
well,
casual fan thinks it.
I'm not trying. I don't. It's very real, judging
It
by
is.
the arguments that
Yeah.
have been had this entire year.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
real, but it's like, you know, it's one thing to have a little bit of drama and a little bit of back and forth, and I think people should be allowed to be the heel or to speak their mind or this and that. But the heels we've had up to this point, I mean, the worst is probably, if you don't count season 1 Tombstone, you'd thank ABC for that. The worst up to this point we've had is probably Jake, and
Yeah.
I don't think
The cow catcher was the
even.
worst.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean,
And that's not even that bad.
yeah, it's not even that bad, and he wasn't that much of a dick about it. And like after they lost to Tantrum, I mean, he wasn't that disrespectful about
No,
it.
it
He
was
was
the
upset,
fans.
but yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, now we have people who are actually. It seems like almost nobody likes them. They're constant. How many times now, even just this year, have we had issues in segments with them? I mean, I'm not saying BattleBots should throw them out. What I'm saying is that like there's more to evaluating these robots than just like how good they are. I mean,
Mhm.
we have an
Yeah.
averts in here. There's nothing stopping them from just not bringing them back. I mean, I was surprised that they were brought back this year from all the things that I had heard just from
Mhm.
last season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like if they're gonna cause this many problems, like it's not worth it. It like really.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It really isn't. I
I don't
agree. It's
I
like,
don't know many people that are having like fun watching that kind of thing,
no, they
and
just get
No.
mad.
it's causing more
Mhm.
discourse, like more negative discourse than
Yeah.
any of the judges' decisions or anything last year, just on the fact that I mean it's involving builders and teams and
Yeah.
like right now the filming has been over for months and they're still fighting about it. So
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
this is an issue that's carrying over, and it's like at what point do you just step in, put your foot down, and say it doesn't matter how good the robot is. It's not like that sacrifice is not worth it.
Not
If
worth
they're
it. Yeah.
causing problems, even if they're not cheating, which I don't think they are,
Yeah.
like just get rid of the problem. And I'm not
Yeah.
even trying to start a slippery slope argument with saying that everyone who causes any kind of a problem should be kicked out of BattleBots. I'm just saying that they already have discretion to decide who's there and who's not.
Mhm.
So if
Yeah.
if these guys are causing problems, just don't invite them back. That's it.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. It's like BattleBots makes insist. The criteria for getting into BattleBots, you need a robot that works, a robot that's entertaining, and they like the idea of a likable, entertaining team. And I mean, maybe I'm biased here, but like Team Break 32 isn't likable. They're just annoying at
Nope.
this point.
They are very
And they're just
unlikable.
causing problems. And like you said, there's so many verts, and quite frankly, you could literally get rid of Riptide, except Manta, which is a similar design
A
with an
four-wheel
actual,
drive
like,
water-themed vert. Go figure. Look at that. Perfect
yeah,
replacement.
exactly. Yeah, except Manta, they have a likable captain. They clearly do
Mhm.
crazy damage to robots and are really badass. Like, there you go, problem solved. Like, I'm not trying to say like, oh, kick out anyone bad in BattleBots, but like, they're they're making the show worse. That's just the bottom line. Like they're taking away I don't even like talking with the BattleBots community outside of, like, the close friends, like, you guys and stuff, about the show, because the discourse is just,
It gets toxic.
people don't like it's toxic. Yeah. Yeah, people just don't like this guy, or like people do like this guy, and it's just causing fighting. Like, I get that BattleBots wants discourse, but like, it's not worth it.
And this
It's
is without
just
even jumping into
gonna hurt the show.
it has. It's not the right type of discussion. Like judge decision discussion is good. Rules discussion is good, even though
Yeah.
we thought last year
It's
it
with
wasn't very good, but it's all right.
like the judges' decisions. At least you can like talk like numbers and statistics and like
I,
why.
any sport's going to have that kind of
Yeah,
thing
Yeah.
too.
exactly.
So I mean,
And that's fine.
it's
But
if anything, being able to argue about decisions and calls makes it more legitimate as a sport. I mean, I
Mhm.
watch the
yeah,
NFL, so
Yeah.
true.
I mean,
But
like, it's
you know,
just
I'm just saying, BattleBots has the authority to just accept or deny whoever the fuck they want. So if someone's causing problems like this, I mean, you know,
there's a
do
lot of
whatever you
robots
gotta
in the
do.
world that went in.
Yeah,
I mean,
and there's also, with how small the field is and how many robots are probably hungry right now to get in, you know, they got the proving grounds coming up in, like,
this
what is
weekend.
it, like tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah. Pretty stoked.
Yeah. You know, maybe if Riptide was the winningest robot of all time, you could make the argument that you have to have them. But I mean, we haven't had Bite Force for 3 years.
That's what I was about to say.
We went without, and we don't have Tombstone this year.
Yeah, and we don't have Tombstone this year. But losing Riptide is not going to be the end of the world compared to, you know, the benefits it could have. I mean, it's ridiculous that we're having this kind of discourse over a single team after all the efforts that BattleBots has made to improve the complaints that people had last year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. And another thing that BattleBots should probably worry about is, like, what if Riptide pisses off one of their actual beneficial teams to, like, being like, oh, I don't want to deal with this guy anymore. Like, let's say, like, they piss off, like, you know, like Team Minotaur or something, or Witch Doctor. Like, you don't want to make, you know, the actual, you know,
the money.
I mean,
the golden gooses.
I'm gonna be 100. I'm gonna be 100 with you. From the amount of teams that I've seen coming out and having things to say, I don't doubt that they have opinions.
Oh yeah.
You know,
like, they're probably saying, like, behind the scenes, like, they're probably nudging Greg, being like, bro, get rid of this dude.
Yeah, I mean, even teams that haven't fought them are having issues. So, you know, I doubt the Minotaur guys don't have an opinion, or you know, a team like that.
Yeah.
So,
Lord,
but you know, I think a lot of it, yeah. But I think a lot of it, you know, will depend on, you know, who they end up fighting, because you know, they fight Will Bales next. I'm assuming they're not going to make any friends from that, if with him or with the audience, if
He's
they
a
keep
vocal
that
guy.
up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we'll see. But like I said, you know, a lot of these issues or these controversies, you know, BattleBots has authority, and it's not like it's a huge company, a large team. You know, it's not like Disney has to make a decision to fire a guy. You know,
it's Greg, Trey, Aaron, and a couple other guys. Yeah.
Yeah, they can just meet behind the scenes, and you know, they narrow the field as slim as they did. You know, we're at what, 50 robots
last season.
Do
sorry, you didn't make it in.
Do whatever, and you know, especially if you got a team doing more harm than good. But like I said, that's their decision. We have yet to see if Riptide has a redemption arc this year, although I fucking doubt it.
I doubt it.
Yeah. I mean, the way they're setting things up, I think, you know,
there's a comeuppance. I mean, this was 10 months ago.
I doubt they win. Just with you know, this isn't the WWE, but with the amount of telegraphing we're getting right now,
right.
I have a feeling that this might resolve itself.
But moving forward here, because holy shit, I forgot there's more fights to talk about. Fuck.
I mean, are there?
I mean, really, yeah. Tell the community that, huh?
Don't make me talk about Claw Viper.
Oh, well, guess what? It's bad news, buddy. Number 11
next,
versus number 22 seed. Our third of 4 rematches on this half of the bracket. These two robots fought during Golden Bolt Round 2 last season, and Mad Catter dominated, but Claw Viper entered as the favorite this time, and a shocker Cinderella for this season where they finished 3-1, had some very impressive victories against the likes of Ribot, Ominous. Mad Catter, meanwhile, enters its 3rd straight playoff, but still has yet to get past the round of 32. Fell to Tombstone in 2020, Black Dragon in a banger in 2021. Enters this playoff as a lower seed, one of its lowest seeds, period, at 2-2. And Claw Viper, meanwhile, like prior fights, shows up configuration free. Mad Catter, meanwhile, brought the mini bot Gassy Cat to the dance, along with their log wedges and the 35-pound jolt blade, one of their more powerful weapons. And immediately off the bat, I think we saw postseason yips in effect for poor Kevin Milcheski here. Claw Viper was being driven like the 2020 version for the opening moments of this fight. A lot of sporadic turning and even a good old ram right into the spike strips for the first 30 seconds. They did manage to get a grip eventually and nearly got into suplex position twice right off the bat versus Mad Catter, ramming it right into the driver's side wall, breaking the ad board in the process. A board which got seriously torn up by these two robots, and even played a bit of a factor in the results as Mad Catter broke the ad board, locked up like two Robot Arena 2 AIs for a minute, just kind of pushed each other fork to fork before eventually splitting off. Claw Viper flipped Mad Catter post-split, even got a couple of hardy slams before sacrificing its full lifting module on a third suplex attempt, which ended up pushing Mad Catter back over, and this ended up costing poor Claw Viper to fight. One massive hit from Mad Catter killed both robots' weapons, but left Claw Viper upended for pretty much the full final minute of the fight here. Like a turtle on its back, we'd see Claw Viper do just enough to stay alive, but not much else, while Mad Catter pretty much just sat back, pushed it around some, but not much else. After 3 minutes, this fight would go to a split judges decision, our first of the playoffs, and our first ever appeal in playoffs history also, as the judges would go 6-5, 6-5, 5-6, Derek Young being the outlier here in favor of Mad Catter. Kevin Milcheski would use his appeal here, and why not? Literally nothing else to lose at this point in the tournament. But sadly for Team Multiversal, this would not play off in their favor. So it was Western Allied Civil War Part 2, and a doozy it was. Mad Catter has finally advanced to the Sweet 16 for the first time in Team Bad Kitty's career. A fun fight, a split decision, a bit of an interesting result here. Interested what you guys have to say about this one.
I mean, it was a fine fight, and I mean, Claw Viper did better than I thought they would.
Yeah,
I mean, I did
time.
pick them to win it, but because I was scoping, but you know, you'd love to see it. They were the first half of the fight. They definitely had a lot of very good moments, but that second half just made me sad, man. The only thing that really baffles me is why did Derek think that Claw Viper won?
Well,
I mean, it looked like complete control.
I mean, I know, complete control. You know.
No, I just I think Claw Viper looked like the better robot for the portion of this fight where the robots were actually fighting. It's just
It's
the
true.
bottom line is they were on their back and damaged for the second half of the fight.
Yeah, and that's,
so
that's
I don't
what
think
caused
the
it.
decision was. I don't think the decision was wrong. But like I said, I think they were the better robot. I mean, Mad Catter wasn't able to take advantage because of the state it was in. I mean, it wasn't driving well and the weapon was down, but they had to win because it was a close fight for the first half, and Claw Viper literally could not do anything for the second half due to, you know, the damage that it had taken. So, you know, that was the right decision. Shout out to Kevin for using his appeal because that's exactly what they should be used for. You know, it makes me sad because, like I said, they're nothing but Verts won this half of the bracket, and Claw Viper especially, not only because I'm such a fan of them and I was so high on them this year, but because, you know, coming up into their next fight, you know, spoiler alert, but it's going to be huge. I think it would have been a more interesting matchup because I don't know how most Verts that don't have a super big, wide, powerful weapon like a Riptide, for example, are going to be able to take care of Huge. We'll get into what I think about them when we mention their fight, but I would have liked to see the grappler take them on, especially one that fast. You know, who knows what hijinks we could get out of that, but
hijinks is eliminated, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to.
I'm gonna beat you to death. Cut that out. I'm sad, but this was still a really great season from Claw Viper. You know, both of the last 2 years they won their opening match and then just weren't able to get into playoffs, so it was nice for them to get in. And I think in this fight they showed that they were able to hang with the big boys, with the Verts, that they wouldn't just get you know, bounced out like they did against Black Dragon last year.
For sure.
I would really hope to see them back in the main competition because they're one of the more fun to watch non-spinners in the competition.
Oh yeah.
They're constantly improving every year. I think Kevin is a very fun character.
I think he is
and,
too.
You know, I would really like to see them back.
On the plus side, I mean, this means Claw Viper can enter champions.
This is true.
Win champions.
Yes, it does.
It's a plus. It's a silver lining, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very happy with how this fight went. Very good performance by both robots. If Claw Viper could just kept going, good 30 more seconds, they might have had the decision skew their way. But
yeah,
I get what the judges
wasn't.
went.
It wasn't even the losing the top of the grappler. It was just on that
the tip
exchange where Mad Catter rushed in. Claw Viper just overcorrected a little bit, and instead of going fork to fork, they exposed a bit of their front corner, and that hit sent them flying, and that was pretty much good night.
Yeah.
It's sad, but I still think, I mean, just this fight being as close as it is, I think is a really good sign for them, because they hung in there with a good vertical spinner, which is absolutely, those 4-wheel drive verts are the meta now.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they were able to do what they did against Ribot and against Mad Catter, especially bouncing back after the HyperShock fight, I see a lot of good in their future, and I really do want to see them back.
Same here. They'll be back. It's a fantastic design. In fact, they might be competing right now. We know that they have a 30-pound and a 12-pound version of Claw Viper competing at the RCE finals. So hopefully, as we speak, Kevin Milcheski is getting some more suplexes and wins. Let's move on to our 6th fight on the show, though. Speaking of 6 fights, here's the 6th seed Huge taking on the 27th seed Scorpius. After a 2-3 season last year, Team Huge was left with more questions than answers. But after one of the more serious off seasons last year, we now see a brand new Huge with shades of his 2018 self. 4-0 in the regular season, left pretty much completely unchallenged, has yet to miss a playoff, but entering this fight had also yet to win in the playoffs. Has always been a round 1 exit. Scorpius, meanwhile, despite being 2-2, may have less momentum than many other robots in this playoff field. After 2 easy wins, which were still littered by questionable decisions from Team Bot Bash, Scorpius made the blunder of the season by busting out, as Kenny Florian put it, they decided to be meme lords and busted out the anime sword. That popped me so good. They busted out the overkill blade during this much anticipated Sawbot showdown. And then versus Ribot, they just carelessly threw that hammer saw right into Ribot's weapon, and I don't know what they were expecting. That was another loss. 2-0 turned to 2-2. About to become 2-3 here. Scorpius, despite being known for their configuration game, enters this one looking about as Scorpius as ever. Classic plow, classic hammer saw weapon up front. And Huge, meanwhile, as always, looks to counter a unique design. They brought out the Tegris wheels, the asymmetric blade for this one, but the story here for Huge was what was labeled the sunglasses for this fight. 2 sheets of extra Tegris armor placed on the front of Huge's face, similar to the walls we saw them try against Deep Six, but more vertical, much more vertical in fact. And with both these robots being equally configuration heavy and configuration killers themselves, this one had me quite worried. Like I mentioned, I actually have Huge as my winner on my bracketology little bracket I made. So a loss here would have annihilated my bracket just hours after making it. And thankfully, not the case here. Scorpius showed some admirable aggression and ability to land strikes on significant spots of Huge early on, took out those stabilizers. But something which Team Bot Bash really didn't show during the regular season as well. Some good driving, some good decisions made there. But once Huge annihilated that right wheel on Scorpius, it was pretty much curtains for the gatekeeper of the battle box. Scorpius tried moving on one wheel momentarily, but Huge is just so powerful this season. One more strike in the hard-to-kill Scorpius was smoking, shooting out some flames, knocked out in a minute flat, minute even. And after 5 seasons, Huge has finally overcome the hurdle of the first round of the playoffs, and quite frankly finds itself in a fantastic position to make it the Final Four now that Bloodsport has been eliminated. Witch Doctor might be a challenge, as Freeze mentioned, but that was really the only threat, and it's been sent packing thanks to LockJaw. Scorpius, meanwhile, still has yet to win a playoff fight themselves, but it has seemed over the past couple of years, Team Bot Bash really makes their buzz during the postseason tournament, whether it be the bounty brackets or champions. So best of luck to them on their road to the Golden Bolts. I'm excited for it. This was a quick one. My boy Huge has advanced. What are we thinking about this one, guys?
So I too have Huge as my predicted champion, and
nice. Yes, we got a nice similar bracket. I love it.
Yeah, I feel like, and I've kind of felt that way since like about midway through the fight nights. Like they just seemed like they're looking really good. They're driving real good. Their weapon hits good, and I think, and quite frankly, I don't know if there's really anyone in the bracket that I feel I would, give the dub to besides like maybe Sawblades could do it. But like I feel like Huge probably beats most of the regular verts, which is what's like left pretty much on the on their side of the bracket. They're just looking real good, and they took it to Scorpios. I mean, I wasn't too worried because Scorpios, they're a good robot, but they're not like they just don't. I don't think they have what it takes to beat Huge.
It's like what I said. They're the gatekeeper. They beat the robots. They lose to the good ones. They're that middle ground.
Yeah, like they're like the high mid tier bot basically. But that said, I kind of expect them to lose. I didn't think they'd lose as bad as they did.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Which gives me more hope for Huge this season. So, good job on Huge. Jonathan Schultz is a treasure, and you love to see it.
Well, I feel like an asshole because I was going to come in here and drop my hot take that I thought Huge was going to go to the Final Four and both of you fuckers have them winning. So, I don't know, fuck me, I guess. But, man, it's just, Huge has always struggled with either the big, tall, or wide verts or the horizontal spinners. And, in terms of horizontals, Waiachi's not here, Ice Wave's not here, Bloodsport just got eliminated. And when I'm looking at the brackets, I mean, it's hard to say what Witch Doctor would be able to do. But on their side, I mean, the only one I can see really beating them is Riptide, just with how big and powerful that drum is, and considering that they beat them before. But I think they have a lot of favorable matchups ahead of them. I mean, they were made as the counter to the meta, and this entire half of the bracket is vertical spinners. I think they're really going to do some damage. I hope I don't eat shit for saying that, but thankfully you guys agree with me. This is probably the most favorable situation I've ever seen them in. They've got Mad Catter next. I have them in that fight. After that, I would assume Witch Doctor. And, as good as Witch Doctor looks, I just think, Huge has a great counter to what they bring.
That ribcage would just get obliterated.
Yeah, I would assume they put a lot of top armor on that, but the weapon just isn't very big. It doesn't have much reach, and I don't know how well a lot of verts, especially the smaller disked ones, will be able to tear up those wheels. So I have Huge going at least to the Final Four. I think they're going to be in the final episode. I think, especially if we do get that Riptide comeuppance at some point, I think that entire half of the bracket could be theirs. And, with how a lot of those top robots, especially in that top left Minotaur quadrant, how we've got a lot of heavy hitters going up against each other, I think this honestly could be theirs to lose after, next episode, depending on how that plays out. As for Scorpios, I thought they were the weakest 2-2, to be honest.
Yeah, it's up there.
I personally would have left them out of the top 32 with how embarrassing their last two performances were, and just the fact that they struggled against Big Dill too before it died. Shout out to Big Dill, by the way. I would have thrown them in playoffs, but
Jackpot was luck too, by the way, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dominant performance, but it was just a flip. But
and then they almost killed themselves after.
I think a hammer saw could work against Huge, but Scorpios isn't very big and tall like Sawblaze is, and the weapon doesn't do as much damage. It was still great driving from Zach Lytle to be able to take off the two stabilizers on the sides, but the robot just wasn't durable to take what Huge is handing out this year, and that's another round of 32 exit for them. I think they're a fun robot. They're a well-driven robot. The team is really animated and fun to watch. But yeah, I do think they're at gatekeeper status right now, especially considering they're not a traditional design. they wheelie a lot. They have trouble with the ground game, and the weapon can't do damage to the heavy hitters like Sawblaze can against a HyperShock or a Minotaur. Um, I think that some kind of major design changes are necessary for them. So
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see what they bring next season or into whatever pre-next season competitions they may compete in. Because,
Yeah.
Who the hell knows when anything is happening right now. So
Right.
we'll see.
Talking about comeuppance to Riptide, I have Huge as my champion. I have them beating Riptide in the semifinals. So I really hope we can see that full circle comeback story, because that's where the story of Riptide started as well. That fight with Huge with the false starts and what have you.
Well,
so.
I do think that we've got a good chance at Riptide versus Endgame, and I think that'll be a very interesting fight.
That's also going to
if
be
that
very
does happen. But regardless, I mean, this is Is it already the best performance from Huge? Is this the furthest they've gotten?
They've made it to the top 16 before because
they did make top 16 when it was just 16. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did almost beat Bite Force, but like I said, I have them winning next fight, if not more. This is definitely the best Huge we've ever seen. It's no longer just beating up on mid-tier robots or robots that can't do damage. I mean, with how many verts are in the field, I think it has the advantage against most of them.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what's going to happen with this robot. And, shout out to somebody.
Right? Somebody to love right there. Now let's go to our talking about Endgame, robot it's going to be facing very soon. Copperhead, 10th seed versus Rotator, 23 seed. Now, all these right side bracket fights, they were great, but there was not one I was more excited for before the fight, and frankly uncertain for, more than Copperhead versus Rotator. Two incredibly compact two-wheel drive killers which have a stake to be the best robot in their respective class of weaponry. The difference between these two, though, is the season which they've had. Copperhead may be the best it's ever been at 3-1 with incredibly quick KOs and one small driving mistake costing them their sole loss. Rotator, meanwhile, made the top 16 last year and came in as a top 8 level robot for 2022 World Championship 7. But after reception issues in round 1, ground clearance issues in round 3, and weapon issues in round 4, after numerous issues, it snuck into the playoffs at 2-2. But now Copperhead's trying to look to take advantage of their poor fortune so far. And now Copperhead is not known for its configurations, but of course, Rotator is Rotator. We got all sorts of weird stuff happening with that robot. They decided to pull out the triple forks, the wheel guards for this one, but perhaps more interestingly, they decided to go overhead with their blade, a decision I certainly questioned. And now a bit of a slow start as we talk about the fight here. A bit of a slow start for Copperhead here at first. Locked up with Rotator, and it seemed sluggish initially. But as the massive hits kept on coming, so did the Colorado robot. Both robots delivered multiple big-time weapon-to-weapon strikes to one another, with Copperhead seemingly getting the better of each collision immediately here. As during one of these, we saw the wheel guard, the left wheel guard, I believe, on Rotator get nearly ripped clean off. But as the fight slowed down and progressed to the conclusion here, we saw these impacts start leaning a little bit more towards Rotator in the long term. Copperhead started having some drive issues during the second half of the fight. But even then, Copperhead was looking better than Rotator, who was down a couple forks in their weapon at that point. So Rotator had drive but no weapon. Copperhead had weapon but minimal drive. It's a classic case here. Certainly closer than both robots may have thought initially after the first minute of action. But I believe the right robot and Copperhead still won here by unanimous judges' decision. So now Rotator has lost to the eventual champion in all these 3 past seasons. So that looks pretty good for Caustic Creations, who now has to beat a BattleBots champion next in Endgame. We will talk about here in a second.
I don't know why Rotator started this way it was.
I felt like the Undercutter could have gotten those little feeding forks that Copperhead has pretty well. Could have bent to the drum.
Yeah. But I mean, it was a fine fight. It happened.
Yeah. It's sort of underwhelmed. I will say that. It was definitely a fight.
I was expecting more.
Yeah, for sure.
That it? Okay. I was about to say that Pory was upset about that one. God.
No.
No, I don't know. It's just I feel like I just when I looked at all the fights on the fight card, like or on the bracket, like that one kind of caught my eye because I'm like that could be really freaking good, but it just kind of like it was okay.
Both robots had their gremlins.
I actually enjoyed this fight quite a bit for the amount of time that both robots were working.
Yeah.
I thought it was the best fight of the night, probably for the first half. But we did end up with two heavy hitters that were limping. You know, as they put it on the broadcast, it really was like, I wouldn't say boxers, I'd say more like two heavyweight MMA fighters. You know, it was good. I was split on who I thought would win. I've been very high on both robots for a long time. You know, I had Rotator going very far last year. So, you know, shout out to me on that one. But Copperhead looked really solid this season, and then fell to a pretty bizarre driving mistake in their last fight. So that made me really unsure of who was going to take this. But yeah, they Rotator had time in the second half of the fight to push them around and show some control, but I think the damage they took up to that point was just too much for them to be able to do that. The weapon was down, and they weren't driving particularly well at that point. So yeah, I agree that the right robot won. I think it's sad for Rotator because, again, you know, I've been high on them every season, and I think when they don't have gremlins, they're probably the best horizontal left in the sport.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just they keep running into counters, and when it's not a counter, I would have liked to see them go undercutter too, because I think the first half of this could have turned out a lot different. But like I said, I still think it was a good fight, and if it wasn't for the two robots that we're going to talk about next, you know, I could see Copperhead going pretty damn far. But, you know, they would literally have to fight one of the two remaining champions on the show left, no matter what.
Yeah. So. Whoever got this one was going to be in quite a situation for the round of 16.
Yeah.
And quite a situation that we even ended up with this fight in the round of 32 to begin with, because here we go. Let's talk about the de facto main event of this episode right here. 6th seed versus 26th seed, and you want to guess who's the defending champion by those numbers. Like I said, champion versus champion, our 4th rematch of the episode. Endgame, the 2020 winner versus Tantrum, our defending champion, 2021 winner. Endgame also the defending Golden Bolt header winner, number 1 ranked robot according to BattleBots entering this regular season. And while they haven't had a bad year at all as a number 7 seed, their embarrassing loss versus Ripperoni has certainly been a blemish on everybody's mind, certainly something sitting in the back of everyone's head, probably even themselves as they move out throughout the season this year. But there's no sugarcoating what's going on with Tantrum. Our defending BattleBots champion, Tantrum, outside of its impressive win over Hydra, has been abysmal with the up in schedule strength this year. Its Scream Mech did not work at all versus Minotaur and Whiplash, and its own sibling bot Blip dominated Tantrum, pretty much just humiliated it, made that robot lucky that the Scream Mech worked for that fight. Tantrum pretty much made it into this tournament basically on the merit of it being our defending champion. But now it had to be a double champ if it wanted to become a double champ of its own. Tantrum entered this fight as it did the fight prior with 2 forks and the punching disc. Only new addition here was the Shreemet guard, which, to Tantrum's credit, did the job very well during this fight. Endgame, meanwhile, it was all about the forks and the wedges, and the Kiwis brought, for this one, piano keys plus 2 long forks, semi-long I should say, not their longest forks, up front and center. Team also had the asymmetrical disc equipped along with a Shreemek, which works every single time without further modifications. Shouts to OES Robotics. And now, like I stated, the Shreemek did work for this fight for Tantrum. And surprisingly, it seemed like Tantrum may have even had the advantage when it came to ground game. Tantrum controlled most of the opening minute, but weapon reach was seriously an issue for Tantrum. Its weapon reach was pretty much countered against Endgame's sloped wedge and the long forks for pretty much the entire time. Tantrum did have control of this fight. Tantrum was not able to deliver any substantial strikes all fight, but when Endgame got its first strike, things started going the New Zealand way. Things were going downhill for old Tantrum from this point forward. As right at the fight's halfway mark, we'd see both those forks on Tantrum come off pretty much back to back. And from that point on, Tantrum barely had any purchase to begin with. It was just a target from this point forward. The defending champ was seriously in trouble. Second half saw Endgame land 8 brutal strikes, back to back to back to back to back to back to back, all completely unanswered versus the champ. And when the fight was done, Tantrum was down both his wedges. Its eye, I don't think the spinner worked at all. They were in a bad spot. I mean, Tantrum showed resilience amidst their last stand, but Endgame, in their third straight meeting, has once again proved that they were the better robot. The Kiwi Killer now advances to the round of 16, where it fights who we just mentioned, the equally as red-hot Copperhead. In fact, both these robots enter the round of 16 tied in the TCC rankings. They both have 20 points each, both sit in the bubble right behind where the top 10 begins. Only one can break in to the top 10, though, and we'll figure that out on the 18th. Now, we'll talk about the big question for Tantrum, and you guys might know the one here in a second, but just general, real quick thoughts on this fight, guys.
Pack watch.
Pack watch. Oh, you know what? This is good for you.
Fraud's gone. This is the real champ versus the fraud champ. Let me get my fucking sunglasses and cape on. No, in all seriousness. Mickey Mouse ears on. Yeah, no, that was a full fucking Mickey Mouse giant nut. But anyway, the Tantrum won the fight the first half. They were getting under them almost every time. They even got, fully under Endgame, but they just weren't able to capitalize on any of those opportunities. They did barely any damage. Like they said, there were a lot of missed hits and missed opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And, the difference was just that when Endgame got under, they tore them apart. And when Tantrum got under, they didn't do too much. So even though I was super impressed with how well Tantrum controlled this fight, at the end, when you're looking at both these robots at the end of the fight, it didn't make much of a difference. It's like looking at one guy who's got his entire face beat up and one who's perfectly fine, regardless of how close the fight was. And that's kind of how it happened. I don't think there were any issues with judging on this one. Endgame had to win that fight
straight up, but
Tantrum did their job. They showed why they weren't just in because of being a champion. I mean, they had a ridiculous strength of schedule this year.
They did.
And I thought for the most part, they looked pretty decent against Minotaur, aside from the self-rider not working.
Mm-hmm.
I did think they had a shot at this, but geez, man, Endgame has been so consistent since Bite Force left. They've lost barely any fights. They had the Golden Bolt win, and the fights they have lost, Bloodsport, they won the nut anyway, and last year was Minotaur, and with how Minotaur looks now, there's no shame in that. So, hot take, but I think Endgame is scary, as usual, and it'd be very interesting to see who they fight in the future, not just next fight, but, in other rounds, if they get to them. I think we could have some spicy matchups.
I think that's a robot that might be able to do something huge, talking about like potential counters. I mean, it's a very odd, I don't know if it's a one-to-one comparison, but we've always saw going to Robot Wars again. Aftershock was always a really good counter to Gabriel, just kind of had enough height to hit the body when other robots weren't. Of course, Gabriel doesn't have a big fuck-off blade in the middle of its body, but maybe Endgame's one of them counters.
No, yeah, it's decently high. Like I said, I still think Riptide has the ideal drum.
They got the brute force, yeah.
Yeah, but also, I mean, if I'm going to trust anyone like that to be huge, Endgame is powerful, it's well-driven, it's durable. I do think those last episode, those final 8 matchups are going to be really good. But even before that, we could get Endgame versus Riptide, and in both their current forms, that's going to be a banger. And on top of that, Endgame's got the wedge. And I think that could, I'm not saying it will, but it could really change the course of that fight if it were to happen. So who knows? Next round, 2 episodes from now, we could still have a lot of upsets. I do think we are assuming who's going to win some of these a little bit, but
yeah, it happens.
There's a couple of really clear, strong robots on this side.
For sure.
So
for sure.
we will see. But this was a super impressive performance from Endgame, especially going up against the former champ and the only other champ left in the field. So, this was a robot they needed to beat again to prove that they're in contention firmly this year.
Yeah, it was a good performance. We're gonna have to see for a lot of these robots. Like I mentioned, one robot we're not gonna have to see much of. Looks like moving forward as we move on to our final big question of the episode here to cap it off. Is this it for Tantrum? Because as stated by numerous Redditors and other community members, which were all present at this event's taping, the team said both during their post-fight interview and during a post-game show in a segment which I guess wasn't aired, that this would likely be Tantrum's last season inside the Battle Box. I mean, of course, we will see it partake in the Golden Bolt tournament for a second straight year. We'll get that bye into the very, very final episode of the year. But it seems like the rumors that we heard from Aaron Hell and different podcasts of him looking to replace with one member of the Seems Reasonable duo with their new robot, the Twins, will in fact be happening. I mean, maybe down the line we can see Tantrum at Destructathon. I'm sure BattleBots is not too keen on losing another modern era champion, but we'll have to see how it plays out. As of right now, it looks like Tantrum may only have one, maybe two, if we're lucky, 3 fights left in its storied career. We might be fending. I mean, it seemed like 2021, 2022 was the year of the retired robots. Smee, Duck, Tango, so many robots retiring. Monty, another one. But this is our first big one here. Tantrum, maybe hanging up the wheels. What are we thinking about this one, guys? Really quick.
It's sad, but I feel like we'll probably still see, I feel like they probably, let Tantrum still win or create for, champions or something next season, if I had to guess. I mean, it's speculative on my part, but I could definitely see that. But, I mean, Aaron, even back when we talked with Aaron on Green's podcast after Tantrum won the nut initially, he was pretty much saying, he wants to play with new ideas. And, I assume he's probably going to replace Tantrum with the Twins or the Twerps or whatever, the
the Cobalts, yeah.
The Cobalts, yeah. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But it's not when I heard about it, it didn't surprise me. I kind of saw it coming.
The writing was on the wall for sure.
Lackluster season that they had.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad to lose a champion, especially so soon after they've won a nut.
Yeah.
But, this is Aaron's decision, and the people who build the robots are much more qualified to say who they want to bring and who they don't want to bring. And I'm just hoping that, we get another cool, unique, and competitive design out of that team. I know we will. I mean, it's a robot that already exists in some form. And if it is going to be a multibot, it would be nice to see a successful multibot in BattleBots.
Yeah,
and I trust that team to make them successful. So I hope at least whatever we get out of this is, good and fun and entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty critical about the Twerps. That's also just because I've been a big Tantrum guy. I really am a sucker for Tantrum and Blip. They bring something unique to the table. They aren't just another Vert. They aren't just another Flipper. They're themed great. They look great. And I know that Twerps will look great. It'll be 2 green mini Cobalts. The cute eyes will be there and all that jazz. But I'm a Tantrum guy. I hate to see them go. But I know the Blip. I know that Blip, that's his name now. I know that Aaron Hill is a creative spirit, and he wants to do as many of these crazy designs as he can while he's in his BattleBots prime. So I don't blame him for it. So, yeah, that's where we got for all of our fights. 8 fights up, 8 fights down. Covered a couple big questions there. And to close it off, our closing discussion here. Fuck, boys, BattleBots trying to take our job. What was our thoughts on Road to the Giant Nut? I was quite a fan. I think they did pretty good.
It was fantastic. I was a big fan. They should, if they have, given they have the resources for it, they should do it next season. Maybe even after every episode. It would be fun.
was just great.
But obviously it takes a lot of work to do something like that. But I thought it was a lot of fun. It was definitely very good.
Yeah, I agree on that. I like all types of auxiliary content for the show. I miss shout out to Jenny, I miss her. But the what is she doing now? She was doing the XFL for a while.
She's doing the FIFA World Cup and NFL. So I think she surpassed us.
She's overqualified, to be honest. But I like any type of content they do, and especially because it's serious. I was going to say introspective, but more just like analytical content.
Yeah.
And involving actual builders. I think that's cool. I like how they did, one from this episode, one from next episode. I like the kind of, it's a bit informal. It's got personality, but they also are talking about, serious things and serious strategy. I like it. I agree with Pory. I would like to see it on more episodes. And one small thing I would like to add to this is it's good to know that they can fit 8 fights plus some extra content into an episode. Discovery, take notes.
Yeah, that was actually a very good point. There was not.
Yeah, shout out to
the filler was killer.
2 fucking fights highlighted both playoffs last year. That was great.
Quality fights too.
Yeah.
My own takes on this.
Debatable, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Lucky versus Copperhead and Rotator versus Shredderator. I can see why
they were the right fights to highlight, but I always said and knew that they could fit 8 in there. So I'm glad they did it again. It was a change that needed to be made.
It was good. My own thoughts on this. This is, of course, like we mentioned, the first ever post-game show BattleBots has done, Chris and Kenny have done, and those two cats absolutely nailed it. Bit of a mix between NBA post-game on TNT with a bit of Top Gear Grand Tour with all the fans right there around the bots, the arena, and builders. Felt very personal. I like that. I wish I attended that. That made me jealous, and I don't really feel that way about most of the tapings because I felt like
I will pay $1,000 to attend the next one.
Yeah, that was fun, man. Just hang out with Chris and Kenny, laugh at some shit. I mean, the Shatter segment was informative and revealing with what's going on with Riptide without pushing it too much. The Blip and Sawblaze camaraderie was fun, and the pre-fight strategy bit where they went full Family Feud and put the other guy in like the noise-canceling headphones. That was cool. That was great. Kenny.
Yeah, and I also, sorry to interrupt you, but I think they did a really good job selecting people for that. After his co-commentary stint, I really like listening to Adam talk about things. I think he's very knowledgeable and respectful. I think he's a really good talker, and I would like to see him in just more of that kind of stuff in general.
Yeah, he's a top-notch guy. A bit of an awkward handshaker from personal accounts, but I mean, as what Pory and Hug said, he's like sort of the de facto mayor of the pits when BattleBots happens, or at least one of them. People love the guy. He's a respectable stand-up guy. New York doesn't get enough representation in the sport, and he does it very well. Of course, great energy by him. Great energy by Kenny. Great energy by Chris Rose. All the way to the very end when he's grabbing the camera. Goodbye! All that just fun shit. I mean, I listen to Chris Rose every day on talking on Baseball Today, so I know what he brings to the table. But yeah, great energy and analysis from point A to point B. The only complaint I have is that it wasn't a third segment longer. It felt like the show was still walking when it was ending. But I get it. The show BattleBots is already as a block 2.5 hours long. You can't get rid of an ad break for another little interview. So I get why they couldn't, but there's definitely a good ground base they have established for Road to the Giant Nut, and I can't wait to see what they do with it moving forward. We're already, though, on our recording at least, live, 1 minute 48 seconds. So we're going to, 1 hour and 48 seconds. I'm sorry. Time doesn't fly that fast. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Guys, it was great to have you guys on. Any final thoughts before we send it out?
Huge is going to win, I guess.
Huge! I'm there with you. You.
I just want to say shout out to Chris Rose and all of Cleveland sports fans. I feel you, and I see you.
Yeah. Speaking of baseball today, you should have heard what Chris Rose was saying about your Guardians yesterday.
About Cleveland, I have a feeling I already know, so it's all good.
Yeah, that beard's getting kind of grizzly right now. He's going through some tough times.
Oh, yeah, I am too. I don't even watch baseball, and I am too.
I do, unfortunately. Even with great seasons, I feel the anxiety.
I just saw they had a Twitter post about their picture, and it had as many likes as it had comments. So that's all I need to know.
That's never good. It sounds like a Riptide discussion thread on Reddit. I'll get out of here, though. This has been the Combot Collective. I'm here with FRZ and Pory Nog. Awesome co-host, as always. You can find Pory Nog on his YouTube page, www.dippyegg.xyz. It's going to be linked in the description below. He has amazing content. He also has his more content coming soon. He also has his awesome Instagram pages, Pory Nog, BattleBots_collector. If you want to look at some new school, old school, bootleg BattleBots merchandise from all sorts of eras. Very good stuff there. On FRZ, I can't tell you the name of his YouTube channel. I think it's just FRZ's GTM.
I have a YouTube channel. It just sucks.
No, check out his Marble Run video. That's what he lives off of.
Yeah, my 600,000 view dog shit Marble Blast video. Check that out. It's great.
Fucking channel still has yet to get 600,000 views. Period. You better.
I just put out another video, but that also sucks, and it has like 20 views. But yeah, I'm mostly just on here. So hopefully I'll be on the next episode in 3 months.
Hey, we're weekly now. We're popping and rocking. But yes, this has been FRZ. the 300 people that watch every week, the awesome 300 people.
Oh yeah.
Know we're popping and rocking. But yes, this is Sterling Brown here, aka Sterling TXTG. That's where you can find me on Instagram. Here with FRZ, here with Pory Nog, capping off our 6th episode of Robot Combat tonight. If you like what you're seeing here at the Combot Collective, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We post all of our Robot Combat news and upload news there. Join a Discord server if you want to check out Robot Combat tonight live every single Friday at 7 p.m. Get all of our uncensored reactions. We had a couple spicy comments that we will not have in the YouTube version. All that spicy jazz. Please join the Discord server. Robot builders here from both the UK and USA. Some BattleBots competitors like Team Jackpot, like Team Omega Team here. Of course, the YouTube channel where you're likely watching this right now. If you're watching live, if you like the video, please leave a comment. Give us your thoughts about the round of 32, about Riptide, about Tantrum. Maybe not about Riptide. Let's avoid that. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all that fun stuff. But we're pushing 2 hours on our live recording, so hey. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Robot Combat tonight. Stay tuned for Amidst the Havoc. Watch the live stream VOD. We're going to be doing a Everything We Know About BattleBots Proving Ground video, hopefully out within the next 2 weeks. Hopefully our RoboGames Rundown will be out fairly soon as well. Thank you so much for watching the Combot Collective, and we are out of here. See ya for the second half of the round 32.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.